Genius Brain listeners, this podcast is brought to you by Fume. Fume, my friends. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And let me tell you something, the feel is great, the look is awesome, and I click it away because your boy got a little bit of ADHD, distraction, ADD stuff. So guess what? If you're fidgety, awesome. So start the holidays off right with a good habit by going to tryfume.com/genius and getting the journey pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 10% off when they use my code GENIUS to help make starting the good habit that much easier. Start the good habit at tryfume.com/genius to save 10% off the journey pack today.
Yeah, like I'm saying too, like don't ever look towards an influencer to tell you where your moral compass should go. Are you out of your fucking mind? I literally stuffed my pants with 2 socks the other day and I put it on my Instagram feed. And you're asking me about the war in fucking Palestine and Israel? Are you out of your mind? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Genius Brain Podcast. We have
Hello.
Ed back from fucking Seattle. Cheers.
Cheers.
You were in Seattle for a very fucking long time.
Yeah, I kind of go in like months now in spurts because like the last 2 times it was my mom going to Korea again. And then I went back. And this time, though, it was so much easier because I actually didn't have to be there like all the fucking time.
Oh, really? Why not?
Because my mom finally hired a competent employee.
Oh.
Have you ever had one of those?
No.
They're fucking amazing.
So when my parents had the store, right, we tried having a couple of employees, and the 2 times we had employees, they stole from us.
Dude.
And with clockwork.
100%. It's like you just have to factor it in.
Yeah.
That these like, you know, a $20 bill or some shit, 100 something is gonna go missing. A case of beer, you know, something's gonna go missing.
My mom's like very meticulous, right? Mm-hmm. So especially when it comes to a cash business, you absolutely have to be meticulous.
Yeah.
And we have cameras in the store.
Yeah.
So, you know, it would be like a month or 2 would go by, things are great, and then suddenly $100 missing. And my mom's like, there's no way $100 missing because she's in the store with them. Yeah. And she's like, okay, let me go. And, you know, she'll talk to them. It's like, oh, you know, we lost blah, blah, blah. And my dad's like, okay, we'll check the cameras. And they get nervous and they don't come back. It's like, what the fuck, man? And it sucks too because, so when my parents were doing the store, you know, at the time, they started hiring people who are like longtime customers, like their kids. Mm-hmm. You know, and so we have rapport with them. It's dope too. Their parents are fine too. And guess what happens after they steal? Their parents come back. They drag their fucking kid in. They like give them their fucking money back.
Oh shit!
And it's like don't you ever come back to the store without me. It's like the only time you're allowed in the store is if I come with you. And they're, you know, we told them it's fine. They're like, no, it's not fine. They stole from you. Right? Yeah. So, and, you know, they got a fucking ass whooping when they got home or some shit happened to them, but it sucked.
My mom's got like a 0 tolerance for like that shit too. I mean, I told you about the employee, the guy who has the lawnmower.
Oh, yeah.
Rides around lawnmower. Yeah, man. That guy, man. He, I told you about the time like he just like stole a fucking case of a carton of cigarettes. Yeah, those are like literally the most expensive thing you can have at a gas station.
100%.
Yeah, and
especially in Seattle, cigarettes are fucking expensive.
Yeah, the taxes in Seattle. When I got back to the store, I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous,
dude. So I started buying weed, right? Yeah. I had no idea California has like a 30% tax on fucking weed, dude.
It's so expensive.
It is insane because instead of taking gummies, I'm just taking like an indica like vape.
Yeah.
So it hits a little fast. It obviously doesn't hit as hard, but it's good enough to help me fall asleep. And then I was checking out. I'm like, excuse me. Like, what is this? And I looked at it, a 30% tax on weed? Are you insane?
Yeah. That's why you got to go on happy hours. That's why every cannabis store now in LA, you're going to have a happy hour where it's like 20-30% off, where you're not paying that tax.
Yeah. So I didn't know that a lot of these like weed stores, they'll like first time customers, they'll get rid of that 30% tax. So I'm just going to different.
Yeah, when they open brand new, right? Yeah, I'm doing that too. Yeah. I'm just doing my rounds.
Yeah, so I got, I forgot what brand it was, but it's a pretty well-known brand, but yeah.
Stizzy?
Not Stizzy. It's something else, but, and I just got a bunch of pre-rolls, right? Yeah. I absolutely hate rolling my own stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like
You just get tired. There's like a I don't know, there's just a kick to it when you do it the first time.
Yeah.
Like the movies, and then you try to smoke it. It looks like shit.
Yeah.
It's fucking falling apart.
My shit always falls apart. And you see other people, they're like so meticulous with it. I'm like, or I can just get it professionally done.
Just get it done, yeah.
And then you're pretty good to go.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the fuck you guys had at Big Bear, that shit shot me to the moon, dude.
Oh, yeah.
And then I remember you're like, just take one puff. And I took one puff and I sat there and I was like, oh, shit. You guys smoked that whole thing, though.
Yeah, that's the level of tolerance like we've been at, dude.
So what's that stuff around the... Because listen,
keef,
that's
right?
keef. So what's keef?
Keef is like, so like, you know, when you roll your own stuff, you need a grinder, right?
Yeah.
And then you grind that shit and then you put in the... Well, underneath it, there's a second compartment. And under it's all that dust. That's that crystal dust on the leaves that gets you high. But when you're grinding it, it falls off, right? And then the bottom of it catches it. Like, let's say you're running out of weed and you just got a little bit left. Collect that shit, put it on top. You're going to the moon.
So that's even more potent than the other stuff.
It's crazy potent.
So
these motherfuckers dip their fucking joints in wax. So also, it's covered in a wax, right? Which is also strong as fuck. And then they use that as a gluing agent to cover it in keef.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's where you're just like, yeah.
So when we smoked that, you know, I had like the little vape thing, right? I took a couple of puffs. I was like, oh, this is not bad. And I think it's because the last time I smoked was that shit. I was like, oh, there's levels to this stuff.
There's a thing about weed, like if you ever have a bad trip, you won't have one again. Like when you smoke that way again. Like your tolerance
it's so crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That thing was nuts. That boosted my tolerance to something else because whatever Dan has is only that shit.
Yeah.
And so your guys' level of smoking is so crazy. When I started smoking the other stuff, I'm like, not so bad.
But you got to remember how we used to drink?
Oh, yeah,
before we discovered weed? Yeah. So we're just like, I mean, even our doctors are just like, yeah, go ahead. Like, rather than binge drinking and getting fucked up, getting blacked out, doing God knows what.
Well, that's the thing too. For me, for the longest time, I didn't want to smoke weed because I had this weird thing of like if I became a dad and my kid wanted to do drugs, it's like, well, dad never did drugs ever. And it was during the time everybody was doing it, right?
Right.
Not anymore. Papa doing some weed.
It's like, you get it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like, because it's either that or I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Right. And I know a lot of people are like, well, there's other ways to listen. I've done sleep studies, sleeping pills, high activity, whatever the fuck that it is. And the problem isn't me getting to sleep. It's me sleeping and staying asleep.
Yeah.
So prior to that, because people were telling me that if you smoke weed, you don't get REM sleep. Then what the fuck have I been getting? Because I've been feeling great.
You feel great, right?
Yeah, like I feel rested, and I hadn't felt rested in years. So I started taking like CBD products and THC gummies or whatever for like almost like 5, 6 years now.
So for me though, is like I would like every year I'll take a break, and then maybe I won't smoke for a couple of weeks to a month to whoever how long.
Yeah.
Right? Until one day I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And you remember last summer, I was off weed for a good bit, and man. Here's the truth. Yes, there's a clarity. Yes, I'm more active. Yes, there's like a focus. In fact, yes, time goes by faster. My days go by. I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And when I do sleep, I have the most fucked up nightmares.
Yeah,
and like crazy dreams. Now, here's the thing. That's because I suffer from PTSD.
Yeah.
So like, the nightmare part is just like, the shit that comes with it. I can't do anything about it.
What's the worst nightmare that you had? I'll tell you one of mine when I don't like sativa because I keep getting fucking nightmares. And my nightmares are weird.
Yeah.
You know what my fucking nightmare was?
Okay, what was
my
it?
nightmare was I was at a club, and there was a club in Sacramento that closed down, right? And the club closed down because a dude got stabbed to death there. And it just like gang violence would happen there all the time. So it was me as an adult now, and I was inside this club that I remember when I was a kid because it was an 18 and under club on the weekdays and an 18 over club on the weekends. And so I was there, and then I was on the wall, and this ugly ass girl was grinding on me. Right? This is my nightmare.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's not about monsters and shit, right? It's not like scary stuff. It's like literally your worst case scenario, like
In the
possible
real
situation
world that
in the
could
real
happen.
world you could be in.
So
that's adult nightmares.
Yeah. So this girl is grinding on. And let me tell you, this is the funniest part of this part. So she's grinding on me, and for some reason, as she's grinding on me, this girl looks like a creature, scaly skin, flaky or whatever, just disgusting. Look, if you look like that in real life, I'm sorry, right? But I'm
monkeypox.
Yeah. And then she was, and I'm on the wall like this. No! Like this, I'm screaming like, stop! And then for some reason, as she's grinding on me, she keeps screaming, I'm married, it's cool, I'm married. And I'm like,
that doesn't make sense.
And so I stop, and so she's telling me she's married, and in the nightmare, I go, I'm married, you can't do this. And she stops, she goes, you're married, you piece of shit.
So your worst case scenario is just being gaslit too?
Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, it's like, you're married too. She goes, that's different. I'm a fucking woman. And then I'm like freaking out, and then everybody in the club looks at me, and all these women are mad at me.
Oh shit!
Like I'm a piece of shit.
Oh shit!
And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm looking at them going, but she's married too. And they go, it doesn't matter. You need to be a better fucking man. And then I wake up. Yeah. I'm like, yo, this was the worst fucking nightmare I've ever had in my life. It's just a bunch of women in the club looking at me for being a piece of shit, even though I was trying to be faithful.
My shit isn't as funny as yours, but like the way, like, it kind of brings up some like Umma issues too, you know? I had a dream my mom shot me in the head in my sleep, and I woke up, right? And I'm like, what the fuck? And it's like I can feel my brain. And I'm like, oh my God.
Like pulsing, huh?
Yeah, someone shot me. Someone shot me. And then this is the part that's fucked up. Like subconsciously, I'm going to people like, my mom shot me in my head in my sleep. And they're like, no, she didn't. Nuh-uh. Come on, dude.
See,
and I'm like, yo, what?
See, in my dream, they were denying the cheating thing.
Right.
What is that? Is that like a habit of weed? Gaslighting? That's what happens when you smoke weed?
Yeah, I don't know. My dream, I'm getting gaslighted too about it. I'm just like, oh my God.
Have you ever spoken to somebody about those dreams? Because that's some crazy shit.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, yeah, I do weekly therapy. And then it's one of those things where my therapist is just like, that's not my realm.
There's like dream interpreters or something like that.
Interpreters, but then that's when you get into the woo-woo kind of area.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You're going to get into, that's where it's like almost astrology. It's too superstitious. Like for me too, in my Christian years, like it meant something. This is a message from God.
Yeah.
Right? Like remember, I told you about me going to Japan after the fucking earthquake and tsunami. I went to Ground Zero and all that shit. Did I tell you why I went?
I don't know.
I had a dream where a big flood like tsunami is coming, right? And then the thing is, I see me as a 3-year-old, like a toddler, and I'm crying, and I grab myself, and I'm trying to save myself, get to higher ground, right? And it's fucking full-on panic, adrenaline rushing, everything. And I get to the top of this hill, and then the flood waters just stop right there at our feet, you know? And then I'm looking at there's like a leaf in the water, and it just dissolves because apparently tsunami is also acid. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I wake up, right? And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm crying, right? And what do? Jump on the internet, check the news. Fucking massive tsunami live in Tokyo. I'm like, oh my God. And this is for me, I took it as a sign from God. I was like, okay, I'm going.
That's a very weird coincidence though.
Yeah, right? It's too close for me to not think that it didn't mean something.
You know, there's a lot of weird stuff in religion. Like, you know, our friends who are religious where it's a little weird. I think about, maybe it's because of the weed now, where you get like kind of introspective.
Oh yeah,
and you think about stuff, right? Because for me, and I've been having conversations with other friends recently about like, you know, I wouldn't say it's my departure from like Christianity, right? But it's me in the process questioning my faith and my religion.
Deconstruction.
Right? And a lot of people don't like those conversations.
Yes.
They think that when you deconstruct your religion or you think about your relationship with God, they think that you're walking away from him, right? But for me, it's like, how I viewed it is, how come you don't question it, right? Well, why don't you think about it?
Because it's too absolute for them.
Yeah.
It's also their entire reality structure. This is why when I was struggling through it, what I realized was that I was destroying other people's faiths. That's not fair.
Yeah.
That's me being vindictive because I'm mad at Christianity. And that had to do with a lot of my therapy. It's like, no, I'm mad at these pastors. It's like,
yeah.
And then I got mad at, in turn, with like the whole church and at Jesus and at God and the whole lifestyle. And then the idea of me wasting my life to do some serious Christian shit.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Why the fuck did I go to Iraq in the middle of a war? You know? It's like crazy. You know, after I left, ISIS took over, blew up that giant temple of Jonah with like tons of sticks of dynamite and shit.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, that place where I was with those people, like the Christian villages, ISIS fucking threw them off the top of buildings, murdered them and shit.
That's fucking insane. You're this close to dying.
Yeah, like, and I did that because I love Jesus.
Yeah.
I did that because I believe God is real. And then if you were coming to me at like something that might rock my very fabric of reality, and I'd go crazy. Yeah, like everybody's first action is defense. So I had to switch up. How do I bring up these questions and these conversations to people, right?
Yeah.
And I had to learn there's a line I can't cross where it's like, okay, they're not there. They're not going to question that yet.
Yeah.
There's very few people I get to talk to about that. And one of the coolest people right now is Jason Min from Citizens Church. Sorry, Jason, I haven't been to church in a while, though. You know, I lost my New Year's resolution.
My buddy James, who was on this podcast, knows him too. They're friends as well. Yeah.
So, like I can have all these conversations with him. And I was so thankful that I could sit and talk with him about that. We're thinking about, you know, my Bible study at Momo. We've been talking about, he and I talking, because he's a pastor of a very influential Korean American church here in LA.
Yeah.
And he's one of those pastors that
it was
has
the original
deconstructed.
Sovereign Grace.
Original Sovereign Grace. Yeah. They've evolved, you know, even theologically, you know, where they realize this hardcore Calvinism, you know, maybe that's not the answer either.
Yeah.
And so it's been a great church. Sorry, I haven't been there. But yeah, you have to find the right people to talk to. Shit, you talk to me. We can maybe branch that shit off and do the Bible study at Momo thing. But back to what your question was, is like, yeah, you got to actually figure out the right question to ask.
Yeah, it's like one of those things too where, you know, when people ask so when James was on this podcast, right, and we're going to release a podcast where he touches on his not departure from God, but him going from Christian music into regular like rap music, right?
Wait, James who?
James Hahn.
James Hahn. Okay.
Sam Mock's friend. Your mortal enemy. I'm
kidding. We're cool.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah,
no, did I tell you I met up with him?
Yeah, you mentioned on the podcast. So we're fucking around now. But you know, a lot of people were commenting on his on the podcast. Like, you'll read some of the stuff that's like, I don't know what your journey with God is, blah, 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 but this isn't for me, blah, 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 blah. And they're like gossiping about him in the comments.
Is this the Uzuhan?
Yeah.
Okay, I only listened to like the first like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were gossiping about him on his music video about his faith with Christ. And I'm like, isn't that inherently un-Christ-like?
Yeah, dude.
So like, I don't understand how that works. How do you guys get into a digital online group and then you discuss somebody else's faith and his departure from God in the worst way possible? You're not doing it to help him. You're not doing it to whatever you view as the right way of Christianity, whatever that version is. You're doing that to bring this guy down, to beat him down, to lift him up. I don't understand the point of this.
Coincidentally, it is happening in the same time to another artist, Lil Nas X. You see his latest clip?
No.
He said, I'm going into my Christian era, and he's singing like a Christian song.
What?
He wrote a Christian song, and it's not bad.
Really?
It's a song, him like reaching out to God, like, I got these issues. They tell me only you can solve this. You know
what's crazy?
But he got so much hate.
Why?
From other celebrities too, other rappers, they're saying, yo, first you mock God, and now you want to act all Christian. You can't do that.
Yes, you can.
And it's like, hey, do we want them to be Christian or not?
Yeah.
What are you asking for? Exactly. Like, what the fuck do Christians want in America today?
Yeah. I think they want to keep their group.
Yeah.
However the fuck they want it.
Yeah.
You know? And like
they want their culture.
Yeah.
They want their nuclear family. They want it the way it was or it used to be or whatever.
Yeah.
But hey, let's go back to the way it was when Jesus was alive.
Yeah.
The way it used to be.
Yeah.
Without any running water. where you got stoned to death on the street.
Yeah, I don't think you guys want it like that, dude.
Yeah. Like, what are you guys talking about? This way of life and this culture. And then you look at Jesus and everything he's doing. He's breaking culture.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, Jesus, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, I do.
Yeah.
And he changed it.
I mean, for somebody like Lil Nas X, right? I mean, you probably, if you are, I mean, the biggest issue was for him, or what people, had problems with him, was his basically celebration of the devil, right? And then if he's going to flip that around and praise God, then your prayers have come true, right? But now you have an issue because he's becoming the face of Christianity. Well, at the time, like for me anyways, if he can get, if I'm, a hardcore Christian, right? And he can talk to the youth into saying that, oh, this is the way I was before and there was something wrong here and I found God. Isn't that what you want?
Yeah.
Are you upset because you weren't that person?
Yeah.
Is because you're not getting the glory? Is that why you're upset? It's just a little hypocritical. I don't understand what the point of that is.
The point is that modern day Christians don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
And they act like they do, and they shouldn't. They should just fucking say they don't know what to do rather than choosing to sin.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the Christ-like thing. You know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to love them. You're supposed to love them.
I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he was talking to me about some of the podcast stuff that we talk about in Christian. He was like, "Do you feel like," he wasn't being mean about it. I think he does feel a certain way.
Yeah.
But he was like, "Do you feel like you, as somebody who you tell me you're Christian, but you have these conversations about the stuff that you went through? Do you think that deters people from Christianity?" I was like, "I don't know if it necessarily deters people from Christianity, but it is stuff that happened. So I choose to talk about it because maybe it's therapy for me, right?" So, I'm glad that your walk in Christ and whatever the hell happened to you was great. Whatever the hell happened to you, whatever,
whatever the heavens happened to you.
Whatever the hell happened to you was all fantastic. But my walk wasn't as great as yours, right? I went through a lot of shit, specifically in a church that was very corrupt. And nobody ever talked about the stuff. And we always brush things under the rug. And every time we do that, nothing gets better. Well, guess what? When I talk about this stuff, other people speak up in their own churches. And they start being like, hey, this is wrong. Oh, and they start talking to other people. We shouldn't do this anymore. So I think people are just very good at sweeping things under the rug. And they act like everything's okay because they're so scared that somebody's going to look at their church or Christianity in a bad way. Well, guess what? If you don't confront that problem now, it's never going to change.
Yeah.
It's never going to change. People are going to continue to be shitty fucking people. They're going to be power hungry and everybody goes unchecked. It's the same thing that happens in Hollywood, right? Everybody sweeps things under the rug just so they can get an opportunity, and nothing ever fucking changes. That's why I hate these fucking stupid galas, the gold gala or whatever the fuck that shit's called. What's the Asian one called?
It's the Asian Masturbation Award.
Yeah, it's basically what it is, right? Yeah. And they're basically perpetuating the stuff that they say in Hollywood, but they're doing it themselves, just in a different group with different faces.
Yep.
So I don't agree with that stuff at all. And if anybody who's a part of that wants to sit here and have a conversation with me, we could talk for days because I've been to that thing and I've heard every single one of those fucking actors in that group sit and say nice things to somebody's face, and they go to some other group and they start talking shit about that person at the same fucking event.
Yeah.
You're psychotic. You guys are fucking crazy.
The weird thing is, like, it's also a bunch of dweebs acting that way. It's not like your Brad Pitts and that shit. It's like dweebs.
Yeah. It's like, what is the point of this shit, dude? It's so fucking dumb. Yeah. But even now, like, we're to go back to that little Nas X thing, like we're finding, I don't know why this is happening, but we are finding a lot of people going back towards like Protestant ideals and Christianity.
Yes.
A lot of people, they're talking about God. They're talking about, this way that I've been doing things, this whole anarchist idea has left me feeling terrible, and now I'm going this way. I don't know why.
Yeah, dude. And you know who's helped bringing it towards the mainstream? The UFC.
The UFC.
Oh, man. Come on. Every fucking Saturday night. I want to say thank you to Jesus. Yeah. I want to say thank you to my Jesus. Yeah. Or like, hey, first things first. All glory to God. It's like, there's a thing with athletes where in order for them to humble themselves, because to be a fucking champion, you have to believe you're God. Yeah. In a sense. Yeah. But then someone like a John Jones or whoever, they got to say, there's this higher power than me too, while I might be ruling this. I think that's how these men culturally, check themselves. Then you got a Khabib, a devout Muslim.
What's interesting? Like,
it's religion. I don't think it's just Christianity. There's like, there's the ways of the old that keeps us in check.
Yeah.
And then it's part of a thing, masculine thing, because we're doing something so primal in watching people combat, or, people who are fighting, right? And when we do that, we just like think of ourselves in the days of old and our ancestors who did this too.
Yeah. And we've been seeing it now too, where like, I think people are really getting to see how powerful religion is, like in the good and a bad way, right?
Yes.
Like when we talk about I haven't spoken about this on this podcast just because I just don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it too, where it's such a complicated topic that a lot of people want to dumb down and say it's very simple, right?
Yeah.
It's the issue that's happening with like Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
and I don't know how many messages that I've got of people coming at me saying, why aren't you speaking up? And I'm like, let me tell you something here, you fucking simpleton fuck.
Genius Brain listeners, this podcast is brought to you by Fume. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong, so instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, which is pretty awesome for me because your boy is fidgety as hell. The wood on it is super nice. It's a really great feel. And look, like I said, if you have a bad habit, not everything in a bad habit is bad. So why not just take the bad out of the habit? Start the holidays off right with the good habit by going to tryfume.com/genius and getting the journey pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 10% off when they use code GENIUS to help make starting the good habit that much easier. Start the good habit at tryfume.com/genius to save 10% off the journey pack today.
Like, do you think it's an easy conversation for me to bring up on an hour podcast where I literally speak about the death and murder of children?
Yeah.
Like a war that has been happening for years, and you want me to simplify it within an hour? Somebody who lives in the comfort of this podcast in this seat in the United States, what the fuck do I know?
Right.
What can I add to this conversation? It's like, you should say that children dying are bad. Hey, no shit. No fucking shit. You think anybody's arguing that fact? You think anybody's arguing the fact that what's happening right now is an atrocity?
Yeah.
You think that if I said something now, it hasn't been said a million times over. That event that happened, that happened, the bombing of that hospital, is one thing that happened over a period of like 75 years.
Yes.
That is not the first. That's what's so irritating about this fucking youth. You think that was the impetus. It was not the impetus.
Yeah. Shit happened a long time ago. You may argue it happened 1,500 years ago, not just 75.
And they want somebody like me, this fucking idiot who has a podcast called Genius Brain.
Born from the opposite side of the world, grew up on the even further opposite side of the world. Let's talk about what's happening there. But like, while it is the largest news, no, they want you to join their side.
Exactly.
Not like talk about it.
Because I wouldn't even listen, and I did think about doing a podcast on this, but there was so much history I had to read about, ask so many questions. I left more jumbled than I did before.
Yeah.
Right. And once again, we're not talking about the death of innocent people. That is a consensus that everybody doesn't want that to happen.
Like, you're at a point where you get it every time someone says it's complicated.
Yeah.
Because you looked into it, and now if someone else wants to ask you, you're like, fuck, it's complicated.
This is the annoying part. If you say it's complicated, do you know what the response is? How is the death of children complicated? It's like, you're so stupid, it blows my fucking mind.
They're looking at the elephant an inch away from their face.
Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And like, for me to kind of just boil this topic down into like an hour, like I said before, it's so stupid. And Selena Gomez, she had to delete her Instagram for a second because she put out a statement people saying like, why aren't you saying stuff about this? She goes, because as a celebrity, if I say something, what can I do? And then people fucking went in on her, called her a monster. They try to fuck her up online. It was so bad. But literally, I just remembered not that long ago, they said, you know what? If you're an actor, just fucking act. Don't talk about politics. And she did that, and she still got flamed. This is how stupid this shit is.
And do you know what the #1 song in Israel is right now? Apparently, it's a song about killing and fucking up American celebrities for speaking out.
This is
like,
insane.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, even if you did, would you make it on? It's like, what's the purpose? What is this game? Right?
Yeah.
Look what's happening. Let's like try not to play the game for a sec. Right? Let's look at this whole fucking map.
Oh, by the way, apparently nobody gives a fuck about Ukraine anymore.
Yeah, we forgot.
And we completely forgot about those Ukrainians that we gave billions of dollars to.
In fact, we couldn't fund them in their last rounds of asking for money because of what's happening there. And now apparently the reports are a lot of Russian investment, you know? So shit is even more complicated. Like, this is affecting a completely different war.
So it's just so hard to say. I don't know what the solution is, because over here in the United States, they just put a sign, we want peace. Okay. No shit.
Like, ceasefire now.
Yeah.
Man, I hope they can hear you.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. I was talking to my buddy who's Jewish, and he's like, the hard part for like Jewish people here is that, you know, I'm Jewish, and you're going to feel for your people.
Yeah.
But I'm a Jewish American. I don't know what it's like over there. And it's hard for me. And he can't even say this on his own platform, like on stuff. He goes, what I want to say is like, you know, for us as like a Jewish American community here, we're so far away from that conflict. We actually don't know what it's like to live there.
Yeah.
Right. We don't know what it's like in Gaza. We don't know what's happening over there. We just know that we feel something for our people. And if I even show a little bit of empathy towards Palestinians because they're human beings, my people will fucking fuck me up. They'll call me a traitor. They'll call me all these other things. And I can't even say anything, because now that you've seen this, there has been so many like anti-Palestine shit, so many anti-Semitic shit that's popping up. It's terrible, dude.
Yeah.
It's so fucking bad. And this is stuff that maybe it's because of the weed once again, where I think about this a lot, right? I'm like, I don't know what the solution is for them. I just don't want it to happen. And that's where I feel so stupid. If I go out and I go on Instagram and I go, hey, ceasefire. All right, David, what next?
Yeah.
You know, and do you think...
This is people like who are angry at you. They keep convoluting social media for real life.
Yeah.
That likes and content affects real life.
Somebody even said this. They're like, well, you did that for Maui. Bitch, there was a direct place where you could deposit to families. Yeah. There was an immediate solution. Give money to the families who lost their home. Here are their Venmos. There was a direct solution.
We're talking about war.
Yeah, this isn't a natural disaster that happened. Yeah. We're talking about war, people's lives. People are being shot, killed, murdered, and bombed. What are you talking about?
David, where's your gun? Where's your boots? Why aren't you strapped up? Like why aren't you on the next flight?
This is what I'm saying. And like, I think that a lot of social media people got smarter because in the beginning, I saw it. The same people that I saw, they were like, fuck Palestine. And then a month later, it went free Palestine. Yeah. I was like, hold on a second here. You know what I mean? And you could have a change of heart or whatever, but you were coming at people.
Yeah.
Because they weren't holier than thou like you were. They weren't the ones that were out there. They call it the front lines. The front lines? You're making an Instagram post.
All right. So this makes me think about 9/11. I was in 11th grade. Or you were in 9th grade?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember my home class was video production. And so the teacher had a big giant TV screen and the news was on. World Trade Center's one's on fire. And I walk in and I said, what movie is this? Right? They're like, it's not a movie. I'm, holy shit. Because my school started so fucking early. It was like 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And so I'm watching this happen, and then literally, the second plane goes in.
I remember
so
that too.
Yeah,
like we were watching it on TV. They rolled out the TV, and we were watching it.
Right, like, and if you hear what all these Israeli people, and then like even their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which we won't get into him because he's got a whole nother political bag of shit.
There's some crazy shit about that guy.
We don't have time to talk about that shit.
Yeah.
like, yeah, like what it makes me think is what America happened to America afterwards.
Yeah.
Like a lot of kids born after 9/11 have no idea of that America before 9/11. It was a different country.
Yeah.
Damn near. And especially the response that was happening was how what they were telling us, right, was support our troops. That was the motto, wasn't it? For years, support our troops, support our troops, support our troops. War, let's go. War. And we were all for it, for sure. I'm older now, and we're seeing this terrorist attack. And I remember those days because I've told them a million times, I grew up in this rural, all-white town. Yeah. And they were like, why do they do this? And they're just like, because they hate us.
Yeah.
You know, because they have to live with sand in their ass.
So there was a time before, guys, when you were on a plane and you didn't have to take off your shoes at TSA.
You could take someone to the airport, go right all the way up to the gate and say goodbye. Yeah.
Not anymore. That changed literally right after 9/11.
Yeah.
Like, kids don't remember that shit. Like,
all the metal detectors, the screenings, the TSA, all of that shit.
And it actually gotten a little more relaxed because I think for years
it was hard. Get to the airport 5 hours early. Yep. It was like that.
They were that scared. Yeah. It was crazy too. I remember there was a guy who was he's a buddy of mine, still a good friend of mine. He was hardcore atheist. This motherfucker started praying so much.
I was like, oh my God, yeah. I mean, I told you, like, I met a guy in Iraq, another white dude who was a missionary who went there because of 9/11. He became Christian.
Yeah.
It changed the world, like the way people looked. So now if you get into the shoes of these sensitive, freaked out, anxious people of attacks, because shortly afterwards, anthrax happened.
Yes.
Too. And then what happened? We fucking invaded Iraq and had nothing to do with 9/11. Yeah. And you have to look at what these countries now are looking at and want to do. They don't want a two-state solution on both sides. And the whole world is like, guys, settle down.
That was a thing that I didn't know about, like, until I started listening to a bunch of podcasts and interviews of pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli. And once again, I'm not because I don't live there, so I don't know. But that is the one thing that was in common. There is no two-state solution. No. They want none of it.
Yeah.
And I was actually shocked. I'm like, oh, because from a simpleton's point of view, I'm like, can you guys split it? Is there a way that we could divide land? No, because we are anointed by God. This is given to us.
Right.
This is my land.
Yes.
And I didn't know any of that shit, And I watch these videos of multiple, I'm talking about, I've probably seen hundreds of videos, and it's that same argument. God says this is mine.
Yeah.
Allah says this is mine. You're on my land. This is God-given land. This is Allah's land. He said it is given to our people. You are invading us.
Yeah.
But this is our land given by God. There is no two-state solution here. Either you leave or we leave, or you die or I die. And that shit's scary. That shit's fucking frightening. And you're seeing what's happening.
And we said it before. So why is America so invested in it? Why are we in that shit so hard? And I mentioned it last time. Because we got a bunch of evangelicals who think they know what the Bible says and are looking forward to the end of the world because of what the book of Revelation says and shit.
I just find it really fascinating, like on our end, where how can people who have lived in the comfort of the United States even fathom or pretend to know what people are going through over there? You don't know.
But it's the same thing, though. It's their same God-given entitlement that the end of the world's coming, and it's like, hey, you on this train, you on this end of the world train, and so they're like, they want our government to help destroy, Hamas, not just Hamas, but like literally Arabs, literally Mecca, literally and it's like, why are you even inserting this into this? So you're taking this opportunity in this war to insert like American nationalism and imperialism into your Christianity, but also because you want to end the world.
Yeah.
You want the apocalypse to happen. You want it all over. That's the crazy part about why, the parts of Christianity where I'm just like, I'm not part of that.
What's like interesting? I want to say the word is interesting. It's how sad it is for someone like me, I didn't understand what was happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it existed. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's crazy too? They fucking, all the places they're bombing out and shit, historical biblical places. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck because it's war to them. And you're like, isn't this special to you too?
Yeah.
This land, you know?
It's weird because, I'm seeing these back and forth from a lot of people, and I'm just observing it to see what's going on. And the people who are arguing are, like I said, people who live here, right? Who aren't Palestinian, Middle Eastern, or Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
They're just yelling at each other. But it's like none of you are doing anything. The imperialism idea, it's like, it is our responsibility to go save these people. But how? Right?
How? It's like people are yelling at Biden that, diplomatically, America has a relationship with Israel to be like, ain't nobody going to destroy Israel.
Yeah.
But it's like in this part, it's like, honestly, they can't ask us for more weapons because all the weapons aren't American weapons.
Yeah.
Like America gives billions and billions, to the state of Israel. Our tax dollars had a huge hand in building the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
And partitioning it. That's what's happening. And so understandably, that's why people are mad. Like, hey, like we've been living our lives blind to it, but then that money we give up every year, a part of it is going to kill Palestinian people. So understandably they're angry, right? And this is why it's like, what can we do?
Yeah.
What can you do from here?
It's like when war happens, people suffer the most, right? And then I keep seeing these videos because I can't turn my cheek to it. I can't not see it because it's happening. And you just see people in Israel, these children dying, and then you look over at these Palestinians, their children are dying, they're crying. I'm like, I don't know what to do here.
It's like that's another thing. Over half the population is aged like 8 to 18.
Yeah.
Kids, half the population. And have you seen the videos of them bombing?
Yeah.
Those are kids.
Children. You see kids missing, their limbs are missing.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds. And it's just.
They bombed Bethlehem too. Yeah. Like Jesus' birthplace and all that shit.
Yeah, dude, that's Jesus' hometown, dude.
Yeah. It's like, fuck.
It's kind of crazy, man. How poisonous like religious fervor can be, right? Mm-hmm. When somebody believes in something so hard, like the lives of other people are like devalued, is fucking insane. And I just can't imagine myself doing that, right? But then, like I said, it's just from my perspective living here. So it's just a weird thing when other celebrities are trying to out other celebrities for not doing what they feel that they should do, right? It's just, like I said, it's an oversimplified solution for a complicated subject. And I've seen other YouTubers, they're doing this podcast, just talking pure nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Where we have people online who are scholars, right? That are trying to break down this conflict. And even then they say it's a complicated topic and a subject.
Yeah.
But then you have some of these YouTubers, some of these podcasters like, let's talk about this because it's a hot topic. You are going to fucking hell. Just to put it out there, you're going to hell.
You need some time.
you need Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
Like you saw this thing happen. You saw videos of like people being murdered and you went, hot topic. Let's talk about it. I'm talking about people drop podcasts on this thing. When that hospital was bombed, I'm talking about 2 days after, and they had an opinion about it.
Yeah.
It's like, are you so morally corrupt that you thought that was the move?
I mean, at this point though, do you have like an opinion about it? Like what you think and feel about it that you're ready to share? It's like,
yeah.
Like for me, it's like,
I'm just at a point where I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
And I want to hear other people's perspective for people who have experienced, lived, and they know what's going on, right? Because I would be a liar to say that I could explain what's happening within even 4, 5, 6, 7 podcasts. I am not the one, and nor do I feel comfortable talking about stuff like that, right? Because it has nothing to do with anything that I know about. So I don't have the confidence, and I also think that it's just, I don't know. something inside me just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Right. But when I see other people on this platform just use that as a thing for them to get likes and clicks, hey, do that with celebrity gossip.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that with Kanye and Kim's fucking relationship that's happening. You know what I mean? Lil Nas X no longer sucking dick. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, no, let's talk about war. Yeah. Like, ooh, did you hear what Israel did?
Yeah.
Like, that bitch. Like, I mean, like, seriously, it's not like that, right?
There are people in my circle who I saw that and I was like, I'm just going to tell you, I lost a lot of respect for you. You know?
Yeah. Like, you just choose a side, like, right off the bat, and you actually don't know what it's about. Like, because, yes, face value, the terrorist attack is terrible. And then the worst thing you can do is sympathize with a terrorist, right? But the most wise thing to do is give it a shot. Why would this motherfucker strap a fan on his back and parachute in and just kill these kids?
Well, that was the thing that, you know, for somebody who like myself who wanted to see what was happening, right? Because we've heard of Hamas for a long time, right? But then I go back to this word, impetus. What caused Hamas to form?
Yeah.
Right? And I just didn't know. I didn't know what was happening.
It was, and then when I looked into it, it was all that shit I didn't understand when I was in 5th grade. That was just on the news all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And like Bill Clinton getting these 2 brown people to shake hands. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
You know, and then from there, it was actually those peace talks failed.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then there's a timeline of this shit of where it comes to.
But nobody wants to go that far back because it actually requires for you to research. It actually requires for you to think for yourself. And it's look, I understand it's tiring, but if it's not tiring enough for you to make this fucking 30-minute like bullshit podcast video about a very complicated subject, you could have gone back and at least looked at that, right? Because it's a very serious topic. And so, you know, when we looked at that, like you can't even say this. If like even on this podcast, I'm pretty sure there's going to be comments coming at me where I literally said, I wonder why Hamas exists. And they go, so you support them? It goes from that to that. I hate that shit, dude. It's like, what the fuck? So if I ask a question, it automatically means I'm supporting this terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Or me, I'm like, why? It doesn't take the fact that I think they're terrible.
Yeah.
You know, but we have to ask why. It's like, where did these people come from? Why do they feel this way? And why is it like this?
Like, you got to ask yourself, what would it take for me to do some crazy shit like that? Well, if somebody literally took my family home that my great-grandfather built with his own hands and they kicked me out and then they got some dude just living in there, and then in the meantime, they killed my kids, and then they killed my wife, and then they killed my sister, and then I went to a peaceful protest every day for 2 years, and then they shot my legs out, and now I can't walk.
I'd be a little mad.
I'm be mad. And I mean, this is what like white Americans can understand too, man. Like, and like what exercising the Second Amendment is.
It doesn't make
like,
yeah, like I said, and that once again, people hear you say that, they're like, he loves Hamas.
Yeah, right. Like, come on. Okay, here's another thing then. Attack on Titan just finished. Did you see it?
That's basically
it's this.
Yeah.
If you can see how fucking complicated war gets because of how much you hate somebody for some shit somebody did 1,000 years ago, or maybe a while ago, or whatever, it'll never end.
Yeah.
It will never end.
And then on the other side too, you can now see what happened. What was it? October 7th?
Yeah.
On October 7th, how this bombing that happened, people in Israel, right, whoever was attached, their children were murdered in this hospital, and that's their experience of what happened. Now you can see, well, there'll be like Islamic extremists as well, because they're going to take that rage from what they felt from this wrongdoing that happened, and it's going to create this. Hate only allows for other hate to happen. It's just going to continue to grow over and over and over again.
Dude, and that leads to like, you know, what people are raving about for war though. Like, here's what Koreans understand. Like, South Koreans hate communists. They really hate them, you know?
Yeah.
And we had a whole war about it, and we're still actually technically at war about it, right? So, you know, I remember I had mentioned before that my grandfather was in Vietnam, not as an American soldier, as a Korean soldier, and I knew just the bit historically that when America went into Vietnam, like Korea was like, hey, we'll go, we'll be there, right? Mm-hmm. Because of what America had done in Korea, South Korea in the Korean War. And I YouTubed Koreans in the Vietnam War, and it's war crime, war crimes, war crimes, war crimes, war crimes. And I'm like, holy shit, my Harabaji is a war criminal. Yeah. It's like the only reasons Koreans went, they only sent there like absolute.
Did you see that
pillage.
One clip of Bobby and Andrew Santino where Bobby's like, Korean people never had slaves?
Yeah. The world record for longest implementation of slavery.
Korea had like the longest period of slavery over any nation
for like 1,500 years.
Yeah, I was like,
but hey, we enslaved each other. Okay?
Yeah, it's different, dude.
That's why classism is so hardcore in Korea. But yeah, I mean, there's like all these things. Like I realized I sat down with my cousin visit Washington when I was up there too. Mm-hmm. I was like, yo, I just looked up this thing. Like my grandfather was in Vietnam, and she goes, your grandfather's a war criminal. Like she already knew. If I say Korean in Vietnam, it's like, yeah, they were. Immediately, yeah. So the testimonies from the Viet Cong about Koreans is fucked up.
That's crazy because all I dated was Vietnamese girls.
So like,
that's crazy how our generation doesn't know anything about this.
We didn't know about that, right? And then I look at myself like I get all salty at Japanese people about not knowing about World War II. Yeah. Shit,
Dude, so I actually watched an early release of The Boy and the Heron.
Ah, fuck! I'm gonna see that this Sunday.
Yeah, I watched an early release of it, and it's a coming of age story. Mm-hmm. It's about World War II, and interestingly enough, I spoke to Joe Gisakawa, and he spoke about his grandmother, right? Yeah. And his grandmother doesn't know anything about the war. And here's the reason why. And you're going to see the story of Joe. It's basically the story of Joe's grandma in Boy and the Heron. So a lot of like Japanese elites who had money, they didn't experience the war. They took their money and their wealth and they just hid in the mountains until the war was over. And so you're going to see that in this. And I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what Joe said about his grandma.
Right.
And you're going to see that in this film. So there was like people who were at ground zero when all this stuff was happening, right? But rich people don't experience shit.
Yeah.
They just go away and they come back whenever, when everything's cool.
Yeah.
Especially like people who were like in the industrial, a part of like that industrial revolution in Japan where they were supplying military stuff like steelwork, like metalwork.
Yeah.
Like they were very wealthy during the war. They were profiting off of the war. Mm-hmm. So they're just making a shit ton of money and they just kind of lived off in the mountainside and did whatever the fuck that they wanted. And you're going to see that in this film.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it. It's like, This is what we had this conversation with Oppenheimer, people wanting to see Japanese people get blown to smithereens. Yeah. It's like, hey, here's the movie for that. There's a little side of the story. It's like, let them create and I'll see it. And like, have you seen it yet, Oppenheimer?
No.
Okay, you're coming over to my place.
Okay, yeah.
Shit, okay. But yeah, like, what, when you ask people like us, what can we do and stuff like that, it's like we tell the stories.
Yeah.
If we can be here and let you guys know what's going on, like deep into the character of it, even if you don't want to, even if you don't want to understand terrorists, you don't want to understand a murderer, but you love watching true crime for some reason. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, but seriously, like, there's I can't believe I said that, but there's a movie Syriana, George Clooney. It's like these series of stories with people interconnecting, and that has to do with this event that happens in the Middle East, of terrorism, right? And it follows all these different characters, and that leads towards this big thing. And it's like you even follow a young, Muslim boy, and you see how they become radicalized.
Yeah.
You take all their shit away from them. I mean, people are asking right now, why is Gen Z boys turning more conservative? Why are they listening to Andrew Tate and all that shit? It's like, hey, if you take away these certain things and accessible things or whatever, they're going to look to something that gives them hope.
Yep, and I always talk, I'm pretty sure you guys are tired of me saying this, but I think you guys are finally coming around to what I'm saying. I told you, you swing that fucking pendulum hard this way, what's going to happen?
It's going to swing back.
Right the fuck back. And you're seeing it right now, right? It's just, I don't know. History constantly repeats itself over and over and over. And you would think people will be smart enough to pick up on this trend, but when you're in it, they don't. And now young people now are so easy to make them like radicalized. We see like for a hot second before the conservative movement is starting to happen now, what was it? Communism and socialism was popping, dude.
Oh God,
dog! Everybody was like,
socialism light, Bernie, and then like capitalist socialism through Andrew Yang.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, well, at least for Andrew Yang, it seemed a bit pragmatic.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like the swinging hard back is just like these young boys looking at these dudes that our culture today is like when we look at Gen X white dudes and say, you ain't relevant.
Yeah.
We don't care what you say. None of that shit.
There was this video of this one guy, he was like a Russian dude, and he was just like talking. He goes, I don't think you guys understand what communism is. You know? It's like, this is the dumbest conversation I'm having here. It's like, why do I, somebody who escaped communism, have to tell you how bad this is?
Yeah.
You know, you guys idolize this ideal, but you don't know what it's like.
They need a better word at structuring like what the idea is.
Yeah.
Or give it a better name, like what Bernie does is calling it democratic socialism. We vote for it. Hey, do you want to pay more taxes for this?
Yeah.
It's that basically. And other nations do it. But when we do it, because we're America, we say no, that's communism. And we can go in circles and circles. All you can do is just vote.
Yeah.
And then we sit here and when we see the way the fucking waves turn, and we'll just talk about it. We observe. We're the watchers. We're not like the leaders, or else you guys would vote for us.
Yeah.
But instead, you guys, quote unquote, vote in your way of just, berating your guys' favorite influencers to believe what you believe.
Yeah.
To vote for you.
Yeah. Like I'm saying too, like don't ever look towards an influencer to tell you where your moral compass should go. Are you out of your fucking mind? I literally stuffed my pants with 2 socks the other day and I put it on my Instagram feed. and you're asking me about the war in fucking Palestine and Israel? Are you out of your mind?
You have a video of you in your undies. A huge chunk. Go to comment section, free Palestine.
Yeah.
Like
I got a couple of those. This girl was like, you know what's happening in Palestine? Are you fucking out of your mind? Who are you asking?
Yeah. Like what honestly for me is like, if what my hope is for people listening or watching is that just take a humane approach.
Yeah.
Just be humane. You know, that there are human beings. And if you're a Christian too, honestly, both sides, the eyes of Jesus in all of them. Come on, guys. Like loving them, loving your enemy, like getting to that part is like the hardest thing for Christians, and they refuse.
Yeah.
They refuse to love. Did you see this report? I forget what article, if it was New York Times or something, but there's an issue in American churches today where, like you said, there's Christianity's popping back in American culture. So dudes are deciding to go back to church, right? But they're hearing a pastor say to turn the other cheek. Blessed are the meek. Pray quietly. You know?
Yeah.
Don't be a jackass.
Yeah.
Love your enemy. And then these new Christians are like, hey man, that's soft.
It's in the
That's
Bible,
too
bro.
weak. It's like, that's Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing that people need to understand. All these fucking Christians who want us to keep sending these billions, like, to preserve Israel or whatever, Jesus predicted that Israel will be no more.
Oh, they don't want to talk about that.
They don't want to talk about that. Like, and it's like one of the biggest events. Jesus finally getting to Jerusalem after just trekking all of it, like the land. And what does he do when he gets in there to fulfill the prophecy? He doesn't find a colt. He gets a donkey, you know? And then they're all saying, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. And then they lay the palm trees at his feet to honor him.
Most modern Christians don't read the Bible, though.
They don't read the Bible, but then this is the thing. Like, his disciples' perspective, they're like, holy shit, they love him. They haven't seen him yet. They heard of him. Like, he is the Messiah.
Yeah.
And they're like, Jesus, isn't this awesome? And he's like, you know what he says? He's like, man, if these guys didn't say anything, the rocks would cry out.
Yeah.
He's like, he didn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care. So, and then when he gets in, they're like, they see the Temple of Solomon. They're like, oh my God, Jesus, look at this. This is amazing. And then he says, you know, all of this, like, it's going to be gone. It's going to be destroyed, stone from stone. All of it's going to be gone. Right? And they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then he says, look at that lady over there. And he sees a poor lady give her only 2 cents. That's all she had. And she gave it, you know, in her offering. And he says, that's fucking crazy. People read that verse and always use it as a way to make people give more offering.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what he meant.
Yeah.
He's like, that's crazy. Just like all those televangelists that prey on old white women that ask for their government checks and like their money that they were going to give to their children for inheritance, they give it to these fucking televangelists.
Well, it's like people who use therapy to weaponize things, right? Like they take things out of context. Like
it's the same thing that was happening. Jesus called that shit out 2,000 years ago too.
What is like one of the biggest misquoted Bible verses, and it was years ago, where it was mentioned about the whole. It was the blood is thicker than water, right? But the whole scripture is not blood is thicker than water. There's this whole thing at the end where it basically explains that that's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your bonds that you have with people mean more than this familial bond that you have.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the families that you create and the bonds that you create will be a stronger tie than the thing that ties you than with blood. But then people only took that one little piece and they kept using it against people. Right? And you see it happen over and over again.
The point of all that was to say Christians, like, I'm not saying you're not supposed to care, but like he said, it was all going to go away. And then keep reading about what he says about what matters.
Yeah.
What matters is the people. It's the people. It's not the land. It's not the buildings. It's the suffering. It's the widows. It's the orphans. It's the homeless now. It is the dying. It's the sick. All of that. Yet the Christians of America today just want more war. And I'm just saying, go read it again in the book of Mark. Like, check it out. He's like, talks about this war shit. He describes all that too. It's like, guys, love the people that are there. Love your neighbors. Love your enemies. That's what he's asking for. There's your solution. There's how you do it. That's how you peace.
Yeah, but they don't want to read the Bible.
You don't want to do that.
It's too long.
So that's okay. You don't want to read it, so it's all right.
Well, guys, that wraps up this episode of the Genius Brain Podcast. I know we're going to have a lot of fucking hate on this one. Write in the comments below about your thoughts about this podcast. Like I said, I don't know what's going on. And as an influencer who stuffs his pants for content, I don't feel comfortable talking about it. So see y'all next time. Genius Brain every Sundays at 12 p.m. Secret Society is SCRTSOCIETY.com. You can go ahead and cop your high quality fashion basics there. Jumbi, Matcha, once again, check out my store in Waikiki. And also we're expanding the brand. I think we'll have hopefully a total of 15 stores next year. So,
and check out my gas station in Washington State. All right, peace.